Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. So today I'm going to be showing you guys how you can make your very own candied roses. First thing you're going to want to do is pull the blossoms off the stems so that way you have some really nice rose petals that you can use. You're going to go ahead and rinse them off. Make sure that they are fairly dry as much as you can before you go ahead and stick them in the oven. Now I have set my oven to 200 degrees. You can use 170. That works too. There are many ways that you can make your own candied roses, but this is the method that I prefer. So I'm going to go ahead and stick these in the oven until they completely dry out, and then I'll be back in about 15-20 minutes or so. Once your flowers have completely dried, you're going to want to go ahead and make your sugar syrup. So for your sugar syrup recipe, you are going to want 1 cup of sugar, 1/4 cup of water, and then 1 teaspoon of lemon juice. You want to let it foam up and bubble, and then once it does and you remove your sugar syrup from the heat, it should be kind of a clearish fluid like this, light yellow to almost a clear. And then at that point, that's when you know you're done, and you can set this aside and just kind of let it cool off for a little bit, and then we'll begin our next step. When you know your roses are ready to be dipped into your hot sugar syrup, you'll want them to be so dry that they crack. So you want them to be a little bit brittle, because this is going to help them hold structure when you dip them back into your sugar syrup, because that sugar syrup does rehydrate them, and once that happens, and sometimes the roses like to fold in on themselves. So if you get them really good and dry, they don't do that quite as much. Also, because they are a little bit more brittle, I like to have another jar handy, so that way in case I do break a rose, that I can use them for another purpose. Next thing you are going to want to do is make sure you have a clean pair of tweezers that you can use to dip the rose petals into your sugar syrup. So I'm just going to go ahead and very carefully do this, because that sugar syrup is very hot, and once it gets on your skin it doesn't let go very easily, and it can burn you. Want to make sure that you let that syrup just drip off, and then you are going to go ahead and carefully place it in a separate bowl with some granulated sugar, and that is it. We're just going to let that sit and cool a little bit, let that syrup solidify, and we're going to pick up our next rose, do this process again. So again, very carefully dip it in that sugar syrup, pull the rose back out, let it drip off, and then we're going to go ahead and just very carefully place it in the sugar. Now every once in a while your sugar syrup will get a little bit thick, so you will need to go ahead and put it back on the heat to thin it back out, so that way your roses won't be so coated in a thick syrup that it doesn't dry out all the way, and then you just end up with a gooey mess. That looks good. Carefully place it over there. I saw some videos where some people used egg whites and just dipped their fresh roses in the egg whites and then coated them in sugar and then put them in the oven. I found that that didn't work well for me. It made my roses look like deep fried something and it wasn't pretty. It didn't look right. So that method didn't work well for me. So then I tried using fresh roses to dip into a sugar syrup, but because the roses were so damp still, they folded in on themselves because the sugar syrup ended up burning them. And then I just had a wadded up mess that really didn't resemble a rose at all, and that's not what I wanted. So I decided to come up with this idea instead. And this ended up being the ticket for me. So if you just dry your roses out, make your sugar syrup, and then go ahead and stick them in the granulated sugar off to the side, then they turn out really, really nice. Now we've got the fun part. So once they have solidified up just a little bit, you are going to go ahead and just coat them in the sugar on all sides. Just go ahead and just dunk them in there, pat them around. Make sure they are well coated in that sugar. And then when you pull them back out, they have a crystallized sparkle to them. They're really pretty. Then you're just going to go ahead and set them aside in a tray and do that with the other roses. This one is done. Looking for any spots where the sugar syrup might have missed the petals, and that looks really good. This one also looks really good. And what's cool is if you take your prettiest roses, you'll get that color coming right through on the other side. There's the other one. Got a couple bubbles there, but that's okay. I can leave those. Let's check this one out. Oh wow, that's super nice. Now you are probably wondering, why candied roses? Well, for one, they are super pretty, and two, you can use them to decorate wedding cakes, cupcakes, chocolate truffles. It's just one way you can add a little bit of some uniqueness, since it can be a wild edible depending on where you get some of your flowers from. And the prettier the flower, the more that those colors are going to show through when it's completed. So it just adds a little bit of something extra. And this method will work for just about any kind of wildflower that you decide that you want to use. So it's just kind of a nice summer or spring treat. These are shelf stable, so they will last for a good 6 months or more on a shelf. Just make sure you put them in a jar with some more sugar in them, so that way it'll help keep them from sticking together. Or you can put them in your fridge and store them the same way, in a jar with a lot of sugar so they don't stick, and then you should be able to get a whole year out of them for different kinds of desserts or treats that you just want to be able to do. I'm going to go ahead and set these aside. So these roses have sat for about 15 or so minutes. They are completely solidified. They are crystallized. They look very lovely. They are sparkly. They just look so nice. So I'm going to be able to use these in some wonderful food decorations for my family gatherings and things like that. So if you like this video, you can come back for more wonderful tips and tricks later on. Bye now. Oh, that tore. It totally tore. Dip your rose petals. Oh, seriously?